Okay, welcome back to another edition of A New York State of Mind. Hi, I'm your host, Ralph Miranda. I'm joined by our producer, Nathan Miranda. And as promised, today is our mid-season podcast on A New York State of Mind. We've been talking Yankees most of the summer. We've gave a little bit of an update on the New York Giants. We'll have more on them as we get here in the next few weeks as training camps open. And, of course, college football will be starting. We'll be talking about Notre Dame as well. But this is the mid-season baseball podcast, and as I said we would do. And I want to talk about where we're at. Yesterday we had the All-Star Game. Monday night we had the Home Run Derby. I want to give you a couple thoughts on that. First of all, the Home Run Derby. It's getting a little ridiculous. I think you got guys now competing in it that are really not home run hitters per se. And, you know, ESPN's coverage of it is getting worse and worse. You know, back in the day that I remember, when the Home Run Derby came about, you know, 90s, early 2000s, you had Chris Berman doing it. And obviously he's retired now or semi-retired, and I'm not really a big fan of his. But the point I'm trying to make is it was done right. When a guy hit a ball, you could watch the ball fly out of the park. Well, Monday night, ESPN has a split screen. So after a guy hits a shot that looks like a home run, on one side of the screen, you can see the guy at the home plate. On the other side, you see kind of a close-up view of the stands. So you really don't know where the ball is until like the last minute. And sometimes you don't even see the ball because it lands into some fans or whatever. Whereas before, you could track that ball, you know, and you just knew kind of where it was going. And that's a minor thing, but I just think the coverage is getting worse and worse, and they're trying to make it as much of a joke as they can make it, broadcast-wise. Take, for instance, Pat McAfee. He has no business being on the Home Run Derby. Now, I know he works for ESPN. I know he's a big star on the college football pregame show, and they're trying to utilize him any way they can, but him and the little sidekick he had with him, it was ridiculous. Now, let me say, I'm old. I'm an old school guy, but I still think it was somewhat ridiculous, okay? So now let's get to the All-Star Game. Interesting game, to say the least. Before I get into the game, same thing. I mean, all the junk that they do before the game, to me, is ridiculous. When they had the players coming out, when they were announcing them, they had all these dancers, girls sliding around, slapping hands with them, and you could tell a lot of these guys didn't want to do that. They just thought it was ridiculous, too. You know, I just think we don't need that kind of stuff. The only good thing that they had in the All-Star Game was that the players are now wearing their uniforms. The visiting team wears their visiting uniforms. The home team wears their home uniforms. And that's something they got back to, which I'm glad. But as our producer Nathan brought up last night, we were watching it, they still should require that you wear your Sunday home uniforms. And what I mean by that is no alternate uniforms. Like the Rays guys were there in their blue tops. Well, they should have been wearing their white tops that say Rays. Anyway, that's just a little thought about that. Okay, so the game. So the National League jumps out to a 6-0 lead. Looks like it's going to be out of hand, and the American League comes back and ties the game. And before I get too far, one other thing I want to talk about, the miking up the pitcher and the catcher. I mean, again, you know, in the first inning, Tarek Skubal gives up 2 runs. Well, you could tell they had him and Cal Raleigh mic'd up. You could tell that their answers were like short, 2-word answers. They didn't want to do that, okay? It was taken away from their performance. Now, Clayton Kershaw got into it, but he knew he was there for one reason. You know, he was just there because they were kind of celebrating him because this was most likely his last All-Star game. So anything, I think we don't need that. That's just my opinion. All right, back to the game. So the American League ties at 6-6. Apparently, I don't know how many people knew this. I think the Fox announcers were somewhat taken back by it as well, that in 2022, they decided to determine that if a game ended tied, they would go to a home run hit-off, all right? Kind of a mini home run derby. And that's how they would determine the winner of the game. Well, the Fox guys kind of stumbled around for a while because they didn't really know the specifics about it. How were these guys chosen? How were these guys, you know, why were they chosen the way they were chosen? And I'm going to look up real quick, the name, one of the guys that was chosen for the home run derby, not home run derby, but the home run hit-off, if you will. Let's see here. Jonathan Miranda. All right, we'll get back to him in just a minute. But anyway, the guys that they had in the dirt hitting the home runs, there was a guy for the A's. They had Miranda. They had Schwarber. Alonso would have hit last for the National League. And I don't know. Nathan can look some of this up for us if he gets a chance. But so the American League takes the American League takes a three. You get 3 swings. Each guy gets 3 swings. Okay, that's it. And how many home runs can he hit with those 3 swings? He can take pitches, but once he swings, that counts. So after 2 rounds, the American League was up 3 home runs to 1. Well, then Schwarber comes up, okay, in the bottom of the 3rd round, I guess, and he hits 3 home runs. All of his swings, home runs, puts the National League ahead 4-3. So then up comes Jonathan Miranda. And here's a guy, no disrespect of him, but he's been in the league a long time. This was his first All-Star game. He's hit 11 home runs. I think he hit 11 home runs this year, and he's got 21 home runs in his entire career. Well, here you put this guy up. He's got 3 swings, and he's got to get at least 1 home run to tie Schwarber, and he's got to get at least 2 to put the American League ahead, which would force then Alonso to come to bat. Well, he hits 2 weak fly balls and a single to left field, and that's the end of it. So Alonso never even has to come up to hit. So that brings up the question that I think is being bandied about among talk shows is how do they choose these guys? You would think, where's Ohtani? Where's Judge? Where's Cal Raleigh? Where's Vlad Guerrero Jr.? Where are these guys? Well, the reason you didn't see those guys is, and this is right out of Dave Roberts' mouth, the manager of the National League, Ohtani was quote-unquote long gone because obviously he came out of the game after maybe 2 innings. Judge was gone. He had already showered and left the stadium. Cal Raleigh was still there, but he had showered and put his street clothes on and was in the dugout. Now, Tarek Skubal was in his street clothes too, but he's a pitcher. He was at least watching it. So you think, why are we, if we knew this was a possibility, why are you going to put this thing in the hands of guys that, quote unquote, aren't really home run hitters when the people want to see the big names? Well, apparently then I read where the actual rule stated that once the all-star teams are selected, the managers have to choose 3 guys. Each league has to choose 3 guys and then 3 alternates before the game, before it's even started. So I guess they go and ask these players, do you want to participate? And if they say no, then they're off the list. Well, that might explain why Judge and Ohtani and them are not in it, but why? Why are they even leaving the stadium? I mean, what does that prove? I mean, that's like just walking out on your team. And my whole point behind all this is that the All-Star game is not what it used to be, okay? Back in the 60s and 70s when I grew up, the All-Star game meant something. First of all, you didn't have interleague play. So the only time that these guys from each league could meet each other was in the World Series. So they had something to prove. Hey, we're better than you are. No, we're better than you are. So it was something to prove. I can remember 2 or 3 games in the 70s that went extra innings. One went 15 innings. They had no problem running out of pitchers there like they did in 2002 when they went 11 innings and all of a sudden Bud Selig has to meet with Torrey and Brenly, the manager of the Diamondbacks, and what are we going to do? Well, they just decided to end it in a tie. Well, how do you run out of pitchers? Well, the reason is because now guys pitch 1 inning or half an inning, so you run through all your pitchers before you know it, and you don't have pitchers for extra innings. Whereas back in the day, guys like Bob Gibson, Whitey Ford, they pitched 3 innings. So you had lots of pitchers available if you needed them in that situation. So the All-Star game, I mean, if you're going to call it the Midsummer Classic, then let's turn it back into a classic, okay? Instead of all the jumping around and fooling around, and this stupid home run hit off, let's make it a real baseball game, okay? Stop talking to the players while they're on the field. Let's go extra innings if we have to go extra innings. Let's make it a real game, all right? Just my thoughts. All right, so we're ready to go into the second half of the season. Let's look at the standings as we go into the second half of the season. The American League East, which obviously means something to the Yankees, the Blue Jays are in first place. They're 55-41. The Yankees are 2 games back at 53-43. The Red Sox, who have won, I believe, 9 straight, are 53 and 45, only 3 games behind the Blue Jays, only 1 game behind the Yankees, and tied in wins with the Yankees, 2 games behind the loss column. And then the Rays are 5.5 out at 50 and 47. The Orioles 11.5 out at 43 and 52. And then in the other divisions, the Tigers are 11.5 ahead of the Twins, the Royals 12 back, the Indians 12 back, and the White Sox 27 games back. So the Tigers, barring a collapse, are going to run away with the Central. Then look at the West. The Astros are 5 games ahead of the Mariners. The Rangers are 8.5 back. The Angels are 9 back. The A's are 16 back. So that looks like a Astros-Mariners run, and I don't think the Mariners have enough to beat the Astros. So the Astros have the second best record in the American League. The Tigers have the best record in the American League, and the Blue Jays have the third best record. So that's your American League. Let's go to the National League. In the East, the Phillies basically tied with the Mets. They're a half a game ahead of the Mets. They have 1 less loss than the Mets. They're 55-41. Mets are 55-42. Marlins 10.5 back. That's it. Braves 12.5. The Braves have talent. I just don't think they're going to be able to make a run. Nationals, forget them. Central Division, the Cubs are a game ahead of the Brewers. The Brewers are really fighting. If you went back and watched the very first series of this season, when the Yankees hosted the Brewers, the Yankees swept the Brewers. I think they put up 20 runs one game. You thought, boy, this Brewers team is not going to be very good. But they've turned it around, and they're fighting the Cubs right now, only 1 game back. The Cardinals are 6.5 back, Reds 7.5, Pirates 18.5. And in the West, the Dodgers have lost quite a few in a row as well, but they had such a big lead that they're 58 and 39, 5.5 in front of the Padres, 6 in front of the Giants. Diamondbacks are fading at 11 back. Colorado Rockies 35.5 games behind the Dodgers. So in the National League right now, the Dodgers still have the best record, the Cubs the second best, and the Phillies the third best right now. Okay, so let's talk about the remaining schedule. Not necessarily the remaining schedule, but let's talk about what's going to happen before the trade deadline. The trade deadline is August 1st, so we're roughly 2 weeks away from that. So I'm going to give you who these teams are going to play in the American League East coming up. Let's look at the Yankees first. So after the All-Star break, the Yankees stay in Atlanta, will play 3 against the Braves. Then they go to Toronto for 3. Then they come home to play Philadelphia for 3, Tampa Bay for 4. And then they go to Miami for 3, Texas for 3, come home for Houston for 3, and so forth. But the ones I want to focus on are the ones before the trade deadline. So Atlanta is no pushover, even though their record does not look good, okay? Toronto swept the Yankees 4 games straight last time they were in Toronto. And now they got 3 more in Toronto. Then they play the Phillies. The Phillies have the second best record or third best record in the National League, and they're not off by much. So that's going to be a challenge for the Yankees. And then they play Tampa Bay for 4. So unless the Yankees get a whole lot better than we've seen, that's going to be a struggle for them before the trade deadline. They still haven't played the Astros, who have the second best record in the American League. They still haven't played the Tigers again. They played them once already. The Tigers have the best record in the American League. And like I said, they have to play Philadelphia. So the Yankee schedule is not going to get any easier, okay? They don't have a lot of pushover games coming up. Miami, maybe. Minnesota, maybe. But that's about it. Through the next, 5 or 6 series. Let's look at Toronto. Toronto opens the second half at home against the Giants for 3. Then they host the Yankees for 3. They're at Detroit for 4. At Baltimore for 4. That's before the trade deadline. Then they play Kansas City for 3. At Colorado for 3. The Dodgers at home for 3. And the Cubs at home for 3. So the Blue Jays schedule is not that easy either. If the Yankees can take care of business, and Detroit will more than likely give them a fight in Detroit, the Yankees could very well take over first place, but that's dependent upon how these things go. Let's look at the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox have actually maybe the toughest schedule of the teams in the American League coming forward. They'll start the second half at the Cubs for 3. Then they go to Philadelphia for 3. Then they host the Dodgers for 3. Then they're at Minnesota for 3. Then host Houston for 3. So the Red Sox have their work cut out for them. That's a pretty tough stretch up until the trade deadline. And that's important for what I'm going to tell you later on. Okay, so just remember that the Red Sox have the toughest, probably what I think is the toughest first part of the second half of the season, and there are 3 games out right now, so they're still in the hunt. And then the Rays, I'm going to include them anyway, even though I don't think they have a chance to win the division. They play Baltimore for 3, the White Sox for 3, fairly easy games, at Cincinnati for 3, and then at the Yankees for 4, and then then host the Dodgers for 3. So they've got a pretty easy stretch there. If they can take care of business against the Orioles, White Sox, and Reds, they could put themselves into good position as well. So my whole point is, it's still up for grabs, okay? I mean, you can't say the Yankees are the best team like Boone is saying. We just don't know right now. It all depends on what's going to happen. So let's take a look at some statistics. All right, let's look at the Yankee statistics right now. Obviously, the Yankees are led by Aaron Judge. We all know that. He's obviously the guy, right? He leads in everything. He's got 125 hits, by far the most, 35 home runs. He's been walked 69 times. Batting average 355, on-base percentage 462. I don't need to go into his numbers. He's doing extremely well, okay? After that, let's look at Paul Goldschmidt. I mean, if you look at batting average alone, okay, Paul Goldschmidt is next at 287, although he was up around 350 early in the season. Bellinger is obviously hot. He's at 282 right now. He's probably hit close to 400 since late April because he started out really bad. Dominguez is 266, Grisham 251, Chisholm 250, Stanton 246, Rice 235, Wells 226, Escara 215, Volpe 214, and then Peraza 149. So I don't see a lot of guys there that really tell me that the Yankees look like they're going to turn it on in the second half. Aaron Judge, by the way, has struck out 109 times already, okay? And he's had 352 at-bats. So that's almost 30%, okay? In fact, it's probably right about 30%. To me, that's not very good, all right? And what the Yankees lack, the reason why Judge is I don't want to say struggling because it doesn't look like that, but the reason he's striking out a lot is because he has nobody to protect him, okay? You know, we talked about this before. When Roger Maris hit 61 home runs in 1961, Mickey Mantle was hitting behind him. He hit 54 home runs. And then Mantle probably had somebody behind him, all right, Elston Howard maybe or somebody, maybe even Yogi Berra. So that's why Mantle saw pitches. Well, why would they pitch to Judge? I mean, sometimes we see Judge batting third, and they'll put Stanton behind him. Sometimes he bats second, Bellinger's behind him, or sometimes he bats second and Rice is behind him. It varies. But there's nobody behind Judge that teams really fear. So why would you pitch to him? Sometimes they intentionally walk him, and then other times they're just pitching around him. They're not throwing him a lot of fastballs, okay? They're going to make him get himself out. And lately he's been doing that. He even admitted that the reason why he's maybe swinging at a few pitches he didn't last year is because he's not seeing any pitches, okay? So that's the problem, and that's why the Yankees need to get somebody at the trade deadline that they can put in the middle of the lineup that's got some power, that can give Judge a little bit of respect from the standpoint of, hey, we're going to have to pitch him. We're going to have to pitch to him. We can't just put him on base, all right? So what that brings me to now is the trade deadline. So the trade deadline is coming up August 1st. We know the Yankees need a third baseman, preferably a right-handed, power-hitting third baseman. They could also use a guy that can field a little bit, okay? You don't want to bring a guy that can hit real well and then have a bunch of liability at third base, which they had with Chisholm. So here are the guys that they're looking at. Okay, the first one is Eugenia Suarez, and I may not be pronouncing that first name completely right, but he plays third base for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's an attractive figure for the Yankees and for a lot of teams because, one, he has an expiring contract, and he would be a great rental, all right, for a team that needs to boost their lineup for the postseason run. And then after the season, you can let him walk, or you can sign him if you think you should. He's 34 years old, though. All right, so he's got a little bit of age on him. He's a good middle-of-the-order power guy, and he would be really good to lengthen the lineup behind Judge, okay? And I'll talk about my projected lineup in a little bit. So he's a target they're looking at. Another one is Nolan Arenado. They kind of flirted with him in the Cardinals in the offseason, and nothing ever came of it because he has a no-trade clause in his contract. He's 34 as well, though. His defense is slipping. He's kind of like LeMahieu. He's owed $40 million through 2027. So the question there is, if you're cutting LeMahieu to replace him with Arenado, does that make a lot of sense? Okay. Now you could say Arenado still got a little bit of power, whereas LeMahieu maybe didn't, but that kind of sounds a little bit like a wash. Okay, maybe not quite. Arenado's hitting .248. He scored 38 runs, 10 homers, 41 RBIs. Suarez, .252, 53 runs, 28 homers, 74 RBIs. Another name is Ke'Bryan Hayes, a Pirate third baseman. Young guy, 28 years old. Might be the best defender in baseball at any position. Definitely the best defender at third base, but he's not hitting very well. He's hitting .240, 29 runs scored, 2 homers, 29 RBIs. So there you go. You got to weigh the possibilities, right? You got two older guys. One's a real good power hitter, all right? One is, used to be a power hitter, Arenado, but he kind of looks like LeMahieu. And then you got Hayes, who you have the risk of bringing in a great defender, but he's not hitting. So if you're going to do that, why don't you leave Peraza at third? He's hitting worse than Hayes, but you got the same guy, basically. So it's really going to be interesting to see what the Yankees do. My vote would be for Suarez, even though he's 34, because he's got the power. He'd be a good middle-of-the-lineup guy behind Judge, and you can let him walk at the end of the season. You don't have to pay him a lot of money because his contract's expiring. Now let's look at the pitching side for the Yankees going forward, okay? This is going to be pretty interesting, I think. If you take a look at the pitching for the Yankees, all right, the Yankees have had not a lot of luck with their pitching, okay? If you remember, they came out of spring training with Carlos Carrasco and Marcus Stroman as starters, Max Fried and Carlos Rodon, and Will Warren. Well, Carlos Carrasco was a flop, okay? His ERA was 5.9. He was 38 years old. He was a junker, okay? So they released him, DFA. Stroman came out, and if you remember that first game against the Giants he pitched, he gave up like 7 runs in the first inning. And then all of a sudden, mysteriously, he went on the DL with a knee problem. Didn't come back till just a few weeks ago. So they were milking that DL stay. He's a junker too. Now, he's given the Yankees a couple good starts recently, but 5 innings at best. So you got to get 12 outs with your bullpen. And the Yankees' bullpen is not really set up very well right now. And I'll get to that in a minute. So right now, basically what you've got for starters, all you've got right now is Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, who both are exceptional. Will Warren, the rookie, shows flashes of brilliance, comes out and lays an egg. Shows flashes of brilliance, comes out and lays an egg. No consistency on his part, okay? And then you got Cam Schlittler, the young guy they just brought up. Great outing against the Mariners, but he's a rookie. 1 outing. You don't really know what you can expect from him, okay? So that's your starting rotation right now. So the question then becomes, who would the Yankees go after? They've got to get another starting pitcher. Luis Gil is supposed to come back, but he hasn't even started his rehab assignment yet. So they'll be lucky to get him back in August. And obviously, Ryan Yarbrough, the guy that they made a 4th starter, who's a junker as well, left-handed pitcher, so he's a little bit hard to pick up for hitters, but he's been on the injured list, the disabled list. And then you've got now Clark Schmidt having Tommy John. He's gone for the year and probably all of next year. And Garrett Cole, we know, had Tommy John. He's going to probably not be able to come back till maybe May or June of next year. So, who are the pitching prospects out there that the Yankees can go after? Well, the first name that I would go after is Sandy Alcantara, Miami Marlins. Former Cy Young Award winner, great pitcher. He had Tommy John, so he hasn't really come back fully from that, but he's young, he's a power pitcher, and he would be a great addition to the Yankees starting staff. Remember I said I'll come back to the Boston Red Sox? Okay, the Red Sox are only 3 games out of first. But I said they probably had the toughest first part of the second half, right? They're at Chicago Cubs for 3, at Philadelphia, then the Dodgers for 3. So that's 9 games against division leaders, all right? So let's say the Red Sox come out of that 2-7 or 3-6. They could be 6 games out of first. They could be more than that out of first, depending upon how those three series goes. So if they really struggle in those first few series, then is it possible they could be sellers, all right? Remember, they got rid of Rafael Devers, and their rookie players are starting to come on, but rookies are rookies, right? We don't know what's going to happen as the season goes forward, so they may struggle. Then they may decide they want to sell. Number 1 name, Garrett Crochet. Garrett Crochet is a big, strong power pitcher. If you remember when they played the Yankees in Fenway a few weeks ago, he had basically shut out the Yankees for 8 innings, all right? And I think he'd only given up 1 or 2 hits. Well, then remember, they were leading 1-0, the Red Sox. Judge came up in the 9th. They let Crochet pitch to him. He hit a home run, tied the game. Of course, the Red Sox won it. But my point is, Crochet's been phenomenal for the Red Sox. He'd be a great guy to go get if the Red Sox decide to sell. We don't know that yet. And then the other question was Jacob deGrom. Great pitcher. He's won 2 Cy Young Awards. He's 36 years old, and he's had 2 Tommy John surgeries. He does have a big contract with Texas. The Yankees may not be willing to take that contract given his age and injury history, but the name is out there. But I would go after Sandy Alcantara. He's the guy. Now let's look at relief pitchers. I just talked about the Yankees starting rotation. Let's talk about the relievers. They came out of the spring with a bullpen that you thought was going to be really pretty good, okay? But let's look at what's happened to it, okay? Yerry De Los Santos, guy that used to play for the Pirates. They picked him up this year. Horrible. You know what his whip is? 1.70. That means he gives up an average of 1.7 walks and hits per inning. Okay, so that's either a walk and a hit every inning, 2 walks an inning, or 2 hits an inning. Putrid, all right? He's on the disabled list now. Then they brought in this J.T. Brubaker, who's had a lot of injuries, finally got back to the major leagues. He's a mop-up guy, but he's not very good. 1.74 whip. Scott Efros, a guy, again, that they picked up here a few weeks ago. Good whip, 0.833, but you never know what you're going to get out of him one inning to the next. Clay Beater, you know what his whip is? Brace yourself a minute. 2.455. That means he gives up almost 3 walks or hits per inning. All right? If you remember last week when the Yankees came back against the Mariners, he gave up a 3-run home run. It was 2-0. So, you know, and Boone keeps going to him, so I don't understand what the deal is there. And then let's get on, Mark Leiter Jr. I called him Leiter Fluid. You know what his whip is? 1.57. He's hurt. Fernando Cruz, his whip is at least down to 1. He's got a great slider. If he can get his fastball over, which he struggled with over the last few outings, he's on the disabled list. So you're left now with Jonathan Loizaga, and let me talk about him for a minute. 1.3 whip. He gives up home runs like they're candy lately. So we don't know what's wrong with him. But you got him, you got Brubaker, Efros, Beater. I've talked about those guys, how bad they are. And now you get down to Luke Weaver. Weaver was lights out last year as the closer. He started this year lights out as a setup guy for Devin Williams. When Williams struggled, Weaver came in and did a great job. He goes on the disabled list, comes back, he can't get anybody out. He gives up home runs left and right. Now, he had a few good outings the last 2, but what do we know about Luke Weaver? Is he going to regress to the old Luke Weaver or go back, regress to the better Luke Weaver, or is this a new Luke Weaver that we're seeing? Devin Williams at least has picked up a little bit. He's had some really good outings his last few. His whip is still 1.1, but that's mainly because of the struggles he had early in the season. So I think he's starting to come on maybe as your closer, but I still don't trust him completely, and that's why the Weaver situation really worries me, okay? Because you just don't know what you're going to get, and we need another closer if so. Ian Hamilton. Ian Hamilton's got a 1.156 whip. Not bad, but he struggles as well. He gave up a big 2-run home run to the Cubs when the game was tied 1-1 on Sunday. So you just can't have that from your relievers, especially late in the game. Now let me talk about Tim Hill. Tim Hill is a guy that kind of gets overlooked. He's the only left-handed pitcher that the Yankees have, really. The only left-handed reliever, excuse me. The guy has a .992 ERA. I mean, a whip. The interesting thing I like about him, his ERA is 2.49, all right? He throws strikes. He's a left-hander. He comes with that kind of sidearm delivery, but he throws strikes. He's not afraid to challenge the strike zone against these hitters, and he's been successful. He basically says, this is my pitch, hit it. And, of course, it's a little hard to pick up when that ball starts in left to right, I guess, especially against left-handers, but he's the best they got right now. So they need a relief pitcher. They need a relief pitcher badly, okay? So let's look at the relief pitchers that are on the market right now. Ryan Hensley with St. Louis. He's going to be a free agent this year. Good possibility. David Bednar from Pittsburgh. He had a lot of success against the Yankees when they played the Pirates earlier this season. He's a target. Freddie Peralta, 29 years old, plays for Milwaukee, 1.057 whip, very successful this year. And then here's an interesting name, Emmanuel Clase. Many of you may remember him. He was the Indians' closer last year, and he is this year too, but he struggled a little bit. They replaced him early in the season for a while. But he's a power closer. I mean, in fact, he shut down the Yankees a couple times in the ALCS, but then the Yankees got to him. I think Stanton hit a home run, and I believe Soto did as well. So he kind of struggled there at the end, but he would be the number one guy I'd go after, especially if you're not going to put him in the closer role. But he's got 3 years left on his contract. So that's a question right there. And a lot of it would depend upon if the Indians want to unload him, okay? So we'll see. So that's kind of where we're at right now, mid-season, all right? We've talked a little bit about the Yankees' needs. We've talked a little bit about where they're struggling. We've talked about who they got in their lineup. So based on all that, here would be my recommendations, okay? As far as your lineup, and this is after the trade deadline, I would go with Dominguez leading off. Leave him there. I mean, they keep moving him around. They keep sitting him down. And I talked about this last podcast. Leave him there. Leave all these guys there once we get this set, okay? Left field, lead off. Goldschmidt, first base, batting second. Judge, third, batting right field. Suarez, third base, batting fourth. Bellinger, center field, batting fifth. Chisholm, second base, batting sixth. Stanton, the DH, batting seventh. Wells, the catcher, batting eighth. And Volpe, the shortstop, batting ninth. I'm not going to get into Volpe that much. I think I've blistered him enough in the past. But we all know where he's at, right? He's hitting .214 right now. And I don't really see it getting much better, to be honest with you. He's hitting .214. He's got 49 RBIs and 10 home runs. Does have 22 doubles. We'll give him that much. But I don't see him getting much better. His defense, too, is struggling. He's made many poor throws this year, which we've talked about in other podcasts. And he tends to back up on balls a lot. Like he wants to play the high hop so he can get a better handle of it. It's almost like he's afraid to charge a ball and catch it on the short hop. Well, what that does is it delays the throw to first because guys, you got some fast runners. It delays the throw, and then he's got to put more juice on the throw, and that leads to more bad throws. So the Yankees are going to have to do something with him. Obviously, he's going to be their guy, unless they're lying to us, like bluffing. Cashman's already said, he's our shortstop. We got to a World Series with him. Yeah, but you didn't win it, all right? And it seems like he's going to be their shortstop, which worries me a little bit because, to get some of these guys that I just talked about, whether it be Clase or Alcantara or Suarez or whoever it is, you're going to have to give something up, okay? Because these teams know what the Yankees' needs are, and they're not just going to give them away. So I'm afraid, the Yankees, the Major League draft was Sunday night. The Yankees drafted 2 shortstops. Now, why would they do that when they got Volpe, their golden boy, and George Lombard Jr.? I have a strange feeling, as much as I hate to say it, that the Yankees are going to dangle Lombard in front of these teams to get what they want. And that's why they drafted 2 shortstops. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm afraid that's what's going to happen. All right, back to my lineup. So Dominguez leading off, Goldschmidt at left field, Goldschmidt second at first, Judge third at right field, Suarez fourth at third base, Bellinger 5th at center field, Chisholm 6th at second base, Stanton the DH 7th, Wells the catcher 8th, Volpe at 9th at shortstop. Now you can mix guys in and out, right? If you want to give Wells a break, Escara can play catcher, Rice can play catcher. Grisham, he should be nothing more than a bench player, okay? Pinch hitter, and if you want to give one of these other guys a break, which I don't see why they would need one, but he obviously can play the outfield, all right? And then we know Bellinger can play center, left, right. He can even play first base. So you got a lot of flexibility as far as positions, but I wouldn't change that lineup at all. As far as starting pitchers, obviously Fried will be your number 1 guy. Rodon will be number 2. I would go and get Sandy Alcantara. He would be my number 3. Then I would move Will Warren to number 4. And then when Ryan Yarbrough comes back, he would be my 5th starter if I need him at any particular time. You know, if you're going to play a lot of games in a row. Otherwise, if you have a day off, you obviously can make up for that day. You don't have to go to that 5th starter. I would get rid of Marcus Stroman. In fact, I read where the Yankees tried to trade him straight up for Arenado in the offseason, and obviously the Cardinals told them to go soak their head. I mean, why would you take Marcus Stroman for Nolan Arenado? But the Yankees need to get rid of him, okay? He's got nothing left. He's a junker who only gives you 5 innings. Your starters got to give you at least 6, possibly 7. You know, the other night against the Cubs, Rodon gave them 8 full innings. And that's unusual today. But 7 would be great, and Fried's done that. That way you only got to get 6 outs with your bullpen, all right? And that could be done if your starter gives you 7. Luke Weaver can go pitch the 8th. Devin Williams can pitch the 9th. And then you're going to have games where starters don't give you those innings, but you can't have a starter that every time he goes out there, he gives you 5 innings, okay? Stroman gives you 5 innings because he gets hit around a lot. He's a junker. He's trying to paint corners. Will Warren gives you 5 innings because he's a power pitcher, but he can't locate. He walks guys, and then he gives up a lot of hits and home runs. So that's what the Yankees should do. Fried, Rodon number 2, Alcantara number 3, Warren 4, and then Ryan Yarbrough as your 5th starter. Get rid of Stroman. Now, Cam Schlittler, all right? I would put him in the mix. I would maybe mix him up with either Yarbrough at the 4th spot or Will Warren at the 3rd spot. Maybe Warren gets one start one time when his spot comes up. The next time Schlittler gets it, okay? And that way you've got some depth in your starting pitching. And then if you can get some of these relievers and you can get Cruz back from the DL and Leiter back, maybe Leiter will get a little better. And then the bullpen will have a little bit more length to it, which is what they really need. So that's kind of it. That's my take on as we sit here at the break. The season will get restarted again Friday night. The Yankees will be in Atlanta to take on the Braves. I'm not sure if they have the starting pitchers set for that yet. I'd say they probably don't. Let me check that real quick. They do not. So we don't know who's going to start yet for the Yankees in that game. It could be Max Fried because he hasn't pitched since, I believe he pitched Saturday or Sunday. Maybe it was Sunday. I'm not sure. But anyway, he could still pitch that game. But the concerning thing about Fried, if you remember I talked about this while I was doing the last podcast and I was watching the game, he left after 5 innings with a blister on his throwing hand. Well, that doesn't sound like much, but you know how blisters are, right? They start out as a blister, they get worse, and they break. So I don't know where he's at on that. Hopefully that's the extent of it. But that's the reason why he didn't pitch in the All-Star game, all right? So let's hope that it's nothing more than that. So the Yankees will come out. They'll open against the Braves this weekend. The Yankees have played 96 games, right? They have 66 games left, and it'll be a race. And before I close, let me talk real quickly. I went through the standings at the very start of the podcast. So let's talk about if the Yankees can't make up this ground, if the Yankees, let's just assume for a minute that the standings stay just like they are across baseball, all right? So the Tigers, Astros, and Blue Jays would be your division winners. The Yankees, Red Sox, and Mariners would be your wild card teams in that order. So the Tigers and the Astros would get the first round bye. Tigers best record, Astros 2. The Red Sox, the Mariners would play the Blue Jays, and the Yankees would play the Red Sox. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? And right now, the Red Sox have beaten the Yankees 5 out of 6 times this year. Okay, So that's not very comforting to me. Now, the Yankees don't play the Red Sox again until August, but they still got quite a few games with the Red Sox to play. So unless they get a whole lot better, one, they could lose their slot in the playoffs or farther down, or they may have to face them in the first round. So the Yankees really need to get into that, really need to win that division, even if they don't have the best record, even if they get the third division winner, and then they end up playing the sixth or the third wild card team, which I think gives them a better road. Remember, this year, it's not like last year. See, this is another thing that most people forget. Everybody talks about the Yankees got to the World Series. Cashman, we got to a World Series. Well, they had an easy road. They played the Royals and the Indians. Royals, I'm sorry, they're not that good. And the Indians were not that great either. This year, I mean, as of right now, they may have to play the Red Sox, and then they may have to play the Tigers or the Astros, right? And then if they get to the American League Championship Series, they may have to play the Tigers-Astros winner if they beat the other one. So it's not going to be an easy road this year. Not as easy as it was last year as far as teams that you have to play. And the Yankees, to me, all right, are not as good a team as they were last year. Volpe was playing a little better last year. Weaver was better last year in the closer role. Stanton was hot. Stanton still hasn't gotten himself back after being gone out for so long. They had Soto, all right? They don't have him now. So we'll see. So I hope you enjoyed this, a pretty comprehensive review of where the Yankees are at, where the league is at right now. And we look forward to the second half of the season. So hope you enjoyed it. Stay with us for our next podcast soon on A New York State of Mind. For Nathan, our producer, I'm Ralph Miranda, and we'll see you next time.